So looking at you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want this? Yes. The starting point for this project was reading a news story about a charity shop. I think it was in Swansea that had something like 900 copies of the Da Vinci Code. And basically they put a sign in the window that said, "You could give us another Da Vinci Code, but we would rather have your vinyl."
We urgently need more records to keep our customers happy and to make more money for Oxfam. It just became kind of a funny thing, you know, like, oh, another guess what's in this bag. We just had so many, we just like piled them all up into, started like that and then went like that and that and that. And just, ended up as a kind of chaotic pile.
I figured I want all those copies. All of the redundant copies. Because if just one charity shop has 900 copies, then there must be many, many thousands. So I was like, I'll have all of those, and then I'll figure out what to do with them afterwards. I reread, for some reason, George Orwell's 1984. And it turns out that it's actually 70 years since George Orwell died, which means that as of the 1st of January 2021, all of his works are in the public domain. So I kind of thought, the way I could use all this pulp fiction, these copies of the Da Vinci Code, is to pulp them and to make paper, and then to reprint 1984. Quite simple, really. When I proposed the project and Becky was researching it, she went to an awful lot of charity shops. We realised quite quickly that that was really time-consuming.
I was just collecting them all from charity shops, and then I was calling charity shops.
It's not the right size.
And asking them, how many Dan Brown Da Vinci Codes can I have? Probably got about 10 that way from looking around. They are out there, but still, that was never going to be enough. We wanted 2,000 Da Vinci Code books.
Did a lot of mileage, trying to find things. A lot of phone calls.
Hello, Robert, the Books Pharmacy.
Hi there, my name is Becky Bick and I'm calling from David Shrigley's studio in Brighton.
David who?
Dan Brown.
Da Vinci Code. Awesome.
Da Vinci Code, original cover.
So what's the most popular one you get?
Da Vinci Code, I guess, is the original.
Awesome.
I mean, it genuinely is so ubiquitous. I mean, not every day, but every week we probably pick up 4 or 5.
We still want some more. Do
you want to see where they would go? That may be interesting, actually. This down here is where this is where they would normally end up.
All right.
That's the donations that we don't want.
Oh, wow. And eventually we found a company who accumulate all the books that can't be sold. Saves a lot of trips to the charity shop. Although I do like charity shops and they are a lot of fun.
I was just intrigued as to why somebody would want so many copies of the Da Vinci Code. When we had the request for thousands of them, obviously a bit puzzling as to what might be done with them. We have so many copies of this book that it in itself can be a raw material to produce something else, which is quite amazing. I don't think there are many books like that. In this warehouse, at this moment in time, we probably have around 2,500 copies of Da Vinci Code. Whilst we've got 2,500 in stock now, we probably get something like 1,000 coming in a week. The majority of which we have to dispose of because there's not enough retail demand for that product anymore. I think any book which comes through in large quantities is really just a reflection of society. Most books are a product of their time, and I think most of us, when we think about it carefully, we understand that. There are things that we did, said, saw at one stage in our life that when we reflect, we might not think they're appropriate in another stage of our life. And the thing about books are, they're printed and they're there forever. They can become an anachronism quite quickly.
He had carried it guiltily home. Even with nothing written in it, it was a compromising possession. Are they one box at a time?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do it here and take a. Is it going right all the way into that door?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to take a picture, you see, of all of them.
All right.
How do you want to do it?
Well, let's just move them to there.
All right, let's
then
try
you're
and,
out the way.
all right, let's try and get
and then
them
you
down
can head
there.
off. So this is what we've got to take to Hemel Hempstead.
Just stand on that side so you're not in the photo.
Yep.
One sec. All right, guys.
Thank you very
I'll
Thanks
see
so
you soon.
much. All right.
You got more coming?
Not for now.
Not yet.
All right then. I'll see you guys soon.
All right. Thanks a lot.
care.
The Da Vinci Code is a sort of conspiracy theory. It's a holiday book. Kind of book that people have read on the beach for the last 15 years since it was released, and it's very successful, and, you know, good luck to Dan Brown. Prose terms, it's not really to my taste, I would say. And I can understand how a lot of Christians might be a bit offended by it. But that's not really my motivation for pulping it. My motivation for pulping it is just that there's a lot of it. And it's available to pulp. It's nice to have one book changing into another. This was not illegal. Nothing was illegal since there were no longer any laws. But if detected, it was reasonably certain that it would be punished by death.
So I found out that there are loads of paper mills in the UK, but most of them are just big recycling plants. 50 phone conversations where I called a paper mill and they went, "What are you trying to make?" So I'm like calling them up like, "Hello, I'm Becky Bick. We need you to empty your vat and put only Dan Brown Da Vinci Code into the vat," and they're like, "Can't be done." Frogmore was the only one.
We like to think here at Frogmore that we invented paper recycling, because we did. There's been a mill here for 1,000 years. In 1803, two guys called the Fedrunia brothers bought the mill to install their new sort of hot property paper machine, which changed the world as we know it, because paper went from being, say, 70p a sheet to 7p a sheet. And suddenly it wasn't just for the elite anymore. It was for everyone. Books, knowledge, religion, communication, and then eventually the postal system and banknotes all came out of here.
We needed someone that could make the quantity of paper that we were looking for, but with that handmade bespokeness. So people started telling me, "You need Gary Fuller." Gary Fuller can do what you're asking. You know, I don't know how many emails I sent this man. Facebook, Twitter, email, Gary. I was just like, who is this Gary Fuller?
Have you read the Da Vinci Code?
I haven't, no. I'll get out of this one. I've probably touched more copies of the Da Vinci Code book than anyone else on the planet, but no, I don't own a copy. I don't think it's me in particular. I think it's just where I am and what's available to me. With the scale that we do these things on, it just makes it a little bit more possible than the larger mills would be able to do.
I did have about 4 people that said specifically.
But it's nice to know. I'll pay them later. Because our paper's made on a machine built 123, 24 years ago, everything is done by sight, hearing, touching, feeling, even tasting. And it's something about being perfectly imperfect. We've recycled books here for a long, long time, but not to the extent of keeping original text in the new paper. So this one takes us twice as long to prepare each batch than any other one would. But I'd seen enough. I knew it could be done if the spines from the books were removed. After that initial trial, I kind of got my head around what you guys wanted, which was essentially a trace of the old book to be left over.
Are you still rolling, by the way?
Oh my goodness. So not only did it take ages to find Gary, there was a point when he was like, had finally agreed to do this for us. But then all these other like weird hurdles got in the way.
I was having a wonderful lunch with a friend in Swansea, and I got a call from a general manager. When someone said there are 10 fire engines here, I know how big of a fire that is.
It was just a complete shock.
Is there anybody in there? The answer to that was no. How are we going to get our artefacts out? Are our paper machines still there? How far has it spread? What are we going to be left with? Then we immediately started salvaging what we could. And everything was just sat in an ankle deep toxic swamp. Burn marks and scorch marks all around the door frames as it tried to get in to the older section of the mill.
And it burned around the door, and then it didn't go past that point.
It's almost like the mill said, nope, you're not coming through. You're going to stop right there.
We've all done as much as we possibly can to carry things on.
We were really at the sort of early stages of this project. We'd done some trials. We knew that we could do it, and we actually had the books as stock. And they were just on the other side of the wall from where the fire stopped. A few feet of brick between the Da Vinci Code and a raging inferno.
It was so weird, because then they called me up and they were like, oh, we're really sorry, like the mill's burnt down, but don't worry, your books didn't.
We'll have something better here than what we started out with. We'll make the best out of that situation, 100%, no doubt whatsoever.
At this point, we've made the paper and we kind of know what it's going to look like. It's quite interesting as an object, the paper, because it has a kind of palimpsest aspect to it. It still has some of the original text, albeit the characters are all disembodied. It's like an explosion of tiny letters in the paper. The beautiful creamy paper deserved to be written on with a real nib instead of being scratched with an ink pencil.
What's this? Perfect.
What I find really exciting about this project is that you don't really know quite what's going to happen. The work is a work in progress even when it's finished, because people, add meaning to it. You don't quite know what will happen along the way. Also, various decisions at this point haven't quite been made yet. So we're talking about the typesetting, thinking about what the cover might be, how big the edition might be, trying to overcome the difficulty of actually making that much paper, and the things that happen along the way. But anyway, at this moment, it's still a work in progress. We'll see what happens.
Our curator, Jacques Sonnier, staggered through the vaulted archway to his grand gallery. He lunged.
An important part of the project is to typeset the book. It's something I've never thought about before, type design, because my work is all about my own text, my own handwriting. So we have a font designer who's designing the font and also the size of the page. We're thinking that might be a bigger thing than a regular paperback.
Curious.
The graphic designer that we have is called Fraser Muggeridge, and font is really his thing.
I've always been really interested in typography in books, even when I was young. When I was 10 or 12, I always wanted to be a graphic designer.
George Orwell there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would do. To me, what's interesting about this project is a lot of the design decisions and production decisions are almost in reverse. And I kind of like that because it's about using all your knowledge of bookmaking. This is one of my favourite books, which is the Encyclopedia of Typefaces. And I often look at this book and I'm just going to see if this the font we are using is in here. Maybe it isn't, or maybe it is. So the font we're using is Berling. That typeface is the typeface that's used for the first edition of Da Vinci Code, as far as we can work out. So in a way, it's more like the choice of typeface comes down to a conceptual decision rather than an aesthetic decision. There was also talk of reusing the cover.
Yeah.
That's what we were...
Look at that, because then you see
Isn't
the
that-
letters.
That's really quite something, right? We're doing things the wrong way round. It's like, how are we then going to make a book from sheets of paper that can't go through a normal printer? So it's a kind of an artwork in itself, in a way. It would be cheaper to print the book on new paper. So in a way, it's harder because there's more people involved. It might be a different printer and a different binder. It's harder to take the covers off this, to cut this off, to bind this in a quarter-bound way, than just to go, let's just print a new one. So we live in that kind of society where it's easier just to make a new one, and I suppose we're specifically not doing that.
A tremor had gone through his bowels. To mark the paper was the decisive act.
Oh!
The point we're at now is to put the book into production.
So we got the covers in here.
Oh, finally.
I know it's only 2 boxes, but they're actually really heavy.
Are they really heavy?
It's very much a conceptual work,
Straight to the left.
but it's been a very collaborative thing. Jealous, they're printmakers in London. We've worked together for quite a few years now. They're printing the cover, so they've done a few tests on how to do that and how to make it.
And here we are. I'll grab this one. You can grab. Working with artists is where I feel most comfortable. The skill in printmaking is to achieve what the artist wants. Having that relationship with the artist so you understand what they want to get out of the print. That's really important. It's like someone having a mechanic or a dentist or an electrician. If you kind of find someone that you're happy with and you work well together, you stick with them. Now, the time that we've spent on that is finding the right ink that reacts to the paper, because all the papers that we have are made for us. But with this is a wood pulp paper, but then it has a sheen, so we have to find the right ink. Also, because of what is it going to be used for? It's a cover of a book. It's going to go on a shelf. So we played around for about 2 weeks to find the exact inks that were good, and then we mixed some inks to get the right sheen on them. As I remember my dad used to say, when I was a kid, I used to have this habit of breaking pencils. I don't know why. But he said, he goes, you never break something unless you can fix it. It's about creating something new. Do you know what I like about it? Is that with David, sometimes he does something because he wants to do it. It's not tied down to anything else apart his own concerns and his own obsessions. The book is important to him, I know that, so that's what I really like, for no other reason that he wants to do it.
If you're making an artwork of this nature, you're sort of doing it as a proposition. You're saying, how about this? What's going to happen if we do this? So I didn't really have any expectations of what would happen.
We are loading 210 reams of 250 sheets of SRA2 Pulped Da Vinci Codes, which is all going to Wimbledon, to our bookbinders and printers, to to then be made within the next 2 weeks into our lovely new book. Yes?
So now it's about finding a place for that object. I've always been very conscious of the narrative, describing how the projects come about. And I guess this film is a big part of that. The next part is, I guess, to put it out there into the world.
Moments away from Swansea now, here's a reminder.
The Oxfam bookshop was in Swansea, where the original news story came from. So they're now going to have the recycled version of it.
Now we're returning to a charity shop because it kind of feels like that cyclical link.
If a story starts somewhere, then it deserves to end there. There's so much positive creativity in Swansea. So it's brilliant that you're prepared to come and have a look at what we've got. Since you first got in touch, I've been thinking, oh yeah, I'll have to look out for Da Vinci Codes, and we hardly get any of them nowadays. Rare and collectible, right?
How long has this process been? It's difficult to chart the passage of time because it spanned the pandemic. I think it's the value of the story that I've learned a lot about, and the joy of a story unfolding. I don't know what people will take from this project. People's responses to the work are the work. I hope that people find it as interesting to experience as I have to make it. At one end of it, a coloured poster too large for indoor display had been tacked to the wall. It depicted simply